Our next guest believes that everyone has a story that can change the world if they are brave enough to tell it. She is an author, a mentor, and the powerhouse founder of Light Warrior Publishing, a house dedicated to voices that inspire, heal, and ignite change. She doesn't just publish books, she equips light warriors to step into their truth. Please welcome Missy Maxwell Worton. And Missy, Light Warrior, it's such a striking name for a publishing company. What does it mean to be a light warrior?
Well, I love that question, Kelly. Thanks for having me here. A light warrior means we are taking the light into the darkness. So we write our stories in a way that brings healing, that brings a way that you can see that there was good happening amongst the darkness. And so we really want to put stories out there that have a positive influence on others, but they also bring healing and change to those who are reading it.
Well, you've said that your mission is to help people from silence to soul speak. Why do so many of us struggle to share our authentic stories?
Oh, that another great question. Well, one of the first things that I notice with most of the authors that I'm working with is that the first question out of their mouth is, "Why would anybody want to read what I have to say?
Mhm.
I'm not a big name." And so they question that they have the authority to speak, but you have the authority to speak to your story. And your story is going to relate authentically, your experiences, the way you tell it, the what you thought in those times are going to relate to your audience. So I always bring it down to number one, why are you writing your story? And finding that why that's going to keep you grounded as you write through this book so you don't get stuck. The second thing I always say is, who is your audience? Most likely, your audience is going to be who you were when you were trying to overcome the traumas and the hard things in your life. And then finally, I ask, what is your message? Your message is going to be different from everybody else. You're going to hit it from a different angle. You're going to relate to someone else authentically. And the only way to be authentic is to tell your truth and to tell your true story of what you experienced, what you thought, the things you went through, regardless if it is the right thing that you were feeling.
That's so difficult for so many people. I know that there's this saying, if you can impact just one person's life, is that what you're trying to encourage these authors?
I really am. I think a lot of people think that when they start writing the book, and this does lead to being, well, to having writer's block, they're thinking that they're writing to millions of people. In reality, you are writing to one person. One person at a time is reading your book. And if you're writing to everyone, you're writing to no one. You need to find your niche, and that is going to be the audience that hears your voice, that relates to you. Because if you've ever read a book and all of a sudden you're going, "Wow, that's exactly how I felt," the only way you are going to find that, and the readers are going to find you, is by being authentically you. And most likely, your story someone is waiting to hear because you have a way of telling it that they've never heard before. They're not going to relate to the big names out there, but they relate to the stay-at-home mom that walked through a very hard time of giving up her work, maybe. They're going to relate to you where you're at. So you have an audience. It could be one, or it could be millions, but write to the one. And that's what I always train my authors to do, is write to one person, and you'll be authentic and you'll hit your audience.
Now, you aren't just a publisher, you are yourself an author. Are these all things that you've had to go through yourself?
It, yes, because when I was in eighth grade, I loved creative writing, and I'll never forget the day that my teacher handed back my paper and said the words, "I hope you don't think you want to be an author," and just how crushing it was. But then she said, "Because you're grammar is atrocious, Missy. And instead of hearing that my grammar was atrocious, which editors can fix in a heartbeat, a good editor, I heard I couldn't write. And so for 40 years, it held me bound to thinking I could not write a book. I wrote movies, I wrote film. I did that because you didn't need a grammar coach to do that. But what happened is when a producer actually heard our story that my book is about, he asked me to write the book. And I said, I don't write books. I'm not a writer. And he asked the words, who told you you couldn't? And at that time, I recognized that I had been a victim to what scientists called authority bias. And that is when someone that you perceive as having authority over you, a parent, a teacher, a coach, a doctor, when they say something, you see it as fact rather than just seeing it as opinion. So once I started seeing those words that I'd held true as fact for 40 years as just someone's opinion on maybe a bad day, maybe she just didn't like my story, then I was able to break through and say, I'm going to write this the best I can, and then I'm going to hire a great editor to clean it up for me. And that released me into writing a book that to this day, it has 18 literary awards, which I'm very thankful for and amazed.
Tell us about your book. What is it and where can folks find it?
Well, they can find it anywhere in the United States or throughout the world. It's on Amazon, but it's also in Barnes and Noble and any bookstore you can go in and request it. And it's called "Don't Mess with This Mama," and it's called "Risking It All," and you can see it. It's called "Risking It All to rescue our daughter," and that is it right there. If you want to see how it looks, but one of the things it was our challenge through going and rescuing our 6-year-old adopted daughter from going into slavery. And so it is in pre-production now for a film, and we're just excited because it does hit on having faith that things are going to turn out okay because you have a belief system that's going to take you there.
Now, for the person who's watching who has a book in them, but feels like their story isn't big enough, what do you tell them today?
I would tell you that there is an audience out there waiting for your story because it is holding the answers of what they've been looking for that they cannot find in any other books. And I just want to encourage you just to start with just what I call the brain dump and just start writing down everything that you feel is important. Answer the why. Why do you think people need the revelation that you are carrying? Why do people need to hear the story that you overcame? Most likely, they're needing to hear that because they need to overcome and they're in the darkest time of their life. And you're going to take them through the story that you made it through. You made it to the other side. And your story is like a hand that is pulling them out of a pit that they don't see a light. They don't see a way to get out. And your story does that, especially when you've made it to the other side. And let me just say this. Actually, most of my authors find such great healing when they write their story. It is the greatest therapy session you can ever have. So I would say, go ahead and write that book, see what happens, and just see what your audience will say after they read it. It's amazing, the transformation that happens in you, and it's amazing the transformation that happens in the audience that reads your book. It's worth it.
So you do this brain dump, almost like a journal, it sounds like. Then
Mhm.
do you come to you and you start encouraging them more and telling them how they can make this where that one person they can impact?
Absolutely. I have a group that meets Monday and Thursday, and we work with you to do writing prompts to teach you how to go deeper in your emotions and your thoughts that you were having at that time. Most books, it shouldn't be a grocery list. We want to feel. The reader wants to feel and experience. You basically show, you don't tell. And these are some of the things we really work with our authors on. They also have a wonderful time of reading what they've they've done and getting great feedback from some of the authors that I've worked with for 4 years who've now done several books, and they've won awards and put out some wonderful books that are impacting other people's lives in a very positive way.
Okay, I've gotta ask the one question. What do you tell
Okay.
that one teacher now that told you had bad grammar and you thought it was you couldn't write?
Let me just say this, I will really, I totally forgave her once I saw that, but when I did go back to my hometown and I had a book signing, and she came up to me and she just hugged me and she said, "I know what I said to you, and I was wrong." And I said, "You are totally forgiven." She said, "I have read your book. Missy, you are a storyteller." And from that, we hugged. I forgave her. And one of the things I said, "But it's a great story. It can really, what you said to me," and I never tell anybody her name, but I said, "What you told me helped me to overcome. And now I get to help so many people overcome that doubt that they have from, authority bias, that they believe that what somebody says was fact and it was an opinion." And my biggest thing that I would say to anyone is, if you want to write a book and you are afraid, who told you you couldn't? Is there a path that somebody told you that you couldn't do this? Or is it yourself? Are you the one that told yourself you couldn't do it? And why did you do that? Because there are people that literally are waiting for your story.
Missy, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Missy Maxwell Worton or MissyMaxwellWorton.com. We'll be right
Yes.
back with more Biz TV right after this.